Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks.
My name is Evelyn Carter, and I'm from a small town in Indiana. I always believed marriage was supposed to be about love, respect, and partnership. But on the night of our wedding anniversary, the truth hit me like a storm I never saw coming. "You call this a gift?" My mother-in-law's voice thundered across the dining room, the veins on her neck pulsing with fury. She slammed a thick white envelope down on the table, the crystal glasses shaking as the sound echoed like a gunshot. "Here's what you deserve, Evelyn. Divorce papers. Sign them tonight, or I swear you'll regret it." My hands froze over the plate, my fork clattering to the floor. The room went dead silent, except for the pounding of my heart in my ears. I looked up, staring at the woman who had never once accepted me as part of her family. Her son, my husband, Daniel, sat beside me, shifting uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us like a coward. "Are you out of your mind?" I snapped, my voice sharper than I'd ever heard it before. I pushed back from the table, the chair scraping across the hardwood. "You think you can walk into my home on my anniversary and decide my marriage for me?" She sneered, her lips curling in that cruel way I'd seen too many times before. "This marriage was a mistake from day one. My son deserves better than you. You've dragged him down long enough. I won't sit here and watch him waste his life with a woman who brings nothing but shame and struggle." Daniel flinched, but he didn't say a word. That silence burned hotter than any insult his mother could have thrown at me. I turned to him, my eyes blazing. "And you're just going to sit there? Say something. Tell her she has no right to do this." But he kept his head low, his lips pressed tight. That's when the rage in me exploded. "Unbelievable. You let her humiliate me in our home on our anniversary, and you just sit there like a child too scared to speak?" My voice cracked, but I refused to let the tears fall. I had fought too hard, worked too much, sacrificed everything for this marriage to let his mother strip me of my dignity in one night. Mrs. Carter leaned forward, her perfume stinging my nose, her words dripping venom. "You think your little sacrifices mean anything to us? Daniel was destined for greatness, but ever since you came along, all I see is a man who's lost his fire. You've clipped his wings, Evelyn. And now I'm here to set him free." I wanted to scream, to throw that envelope back in her face. But instead, I picked it up slowly, my fingers trembling as I unfolded the papers. My name was right there in bold print, like a cruel joke. My signature line waiting, as if my whole life could be erased with a pen stroke. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "You're unbelievable. Do you think marriage is a contract you can cancel whenever you feel like it? That you can just hand me divorce papers like they're some party favor?" Her eyes narrowed. "No. I think marriage is a commitment to family. And you've an outsider. You'll always be an outsider." Her words cut deeper than any knife. But what shattered me wasn't her cruelty, it was the way Daniel finally looked up, and instead of defending me, his lips parted as if he might actually agree with her. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I slammed the papers back on the table so hard the wine glasses tipped, red liquid spilling across the white tablecloth like blood. "You want a fight? You've got one. Because I'm not signing away my marriage just to satisfy your pride." My chest heaved, my hands shaking, my whole body trembling with the weight of betrayal. I turned my gaze to Daniel, my voice breaking as I asked the only question that mattered: "Do you want this too? Do you want me gone?" The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. He couldn't look at me. He couldn't even say no. That silence was my answer. I staggered back, feeling the ground slip beneath me, and that's when I realized. This wasn't just a fight for my marriage. This was a fight for my dignity, for my worth, for every single day I had given to a man who couldn't even open his mouth when it mattered most. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to let them write the ending of my story. If they wanted to hand me divorce papers, fine. But my gift, the one I had prepared for Daniel that night, was going to change everything. It was going to shatter the smug smile off his mother's face, and maybe, just maybe, make Daniel finally see who I truly was. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't walking away quietly. It's standing tall when they expect you to fall. My name is Evelyn Carter. And this is the story of how, on the night my mother-in-law tried to end my marriage, I gave a gift that turned all their worlds upside down. So listen closely, because if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been pushed aside, if you've ever been told you don't belong, this story is for you. You don't have to beg for a seat at their table. Sometimes, you build your own. And when you do, they'll regret the day they ever tried to tear you down. Fire. Never let anyone else write the ending of your story. Stand up, even when your voice shakes. Because the moment you stop letting them control you, that's the moment you take your power back. The wine kept spreading across the tablecloth like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. The stain grew darker, wider, swallowing everything in its path. And somehow, I couldn't look away from it. Because that's what this marriage felt like, something pure and white, now drowning under a mess no one could clean. Evelyn, sit down, Daniel finally muttered, his voice low, like a guilty child whispering in church. His hands were clenched tight, knuckles pale, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. He never could, not when his mother was in the room. I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes out broken and bitter. Sit down? After what just happened? After she just tried to hand me divorce papers like a gift bag at a party? His mother leaned back in her chair, smug as a queen watching her subjects bicker. I didn't try, dear. I did. And if you had any sense, you'd thank me for it. Do you really think clinging to a loveless marriage makes you strong? No, Evelyn, it makes you pathetic. Her words hit me like bullets, but I refused to let her see me bleed. I stepped closer, my voice sharp, cutting through the tension. Loveless? You don't know the first thing about what love looks like. Maybe that's why you can't stand me, because I don't bow to you the way Daniel always has. Her eyes flashed, and for a second I saw it, the fury of a woman who had controlled everything and everyone around her for decades, except me. Watch your mouth, she hissed. You've taken enough from this family. Enough. That word echoed in my head. Had I really taken anything? I thought back to the years I'd worked 2 jobs just to help Daniel through business school, the nights I came home exhausted but still cooked dinner, the weekends I skipped outings with friends so we could save for a down payment on our first house. What exactly had I taken? I turned to Daniel, my voice shaking but strong enough to cut through the silence. Tell me, Daniel. What have I taken from you? Go on, say it. Look me in the eye and tell me I ruined your life. He finally looked up, but his eyes weren't filled with love or even anger. They were filled with fear. Fear of me, fear of her, fear of the truth. Evelyn, please, don't do this now. That was it. That was all he had to give. And in that moment, I knew I was fighting a battle not just against his mother, but against him too. Because a man who can't stand up for his wife isn't a husband. He's a puppet. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. My chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. Then, without another word, I picked up the envelope, folded it neatly, and slipped it into my purse. Fine. If this is what you want, then let's see how it plays out. But don't forget, I came prepared tonight too. I brought a gift, remember? Daniel blinked, confused. His mother snorted. A gift? Please. Nothing you could possibly give would change the fact that you don't belong here. I smiled then, a slow, deliberate smile that made her shift uneasily for the first time all evening. Oh, you'll see. And when you do, you'll realize you underestimated me. I walked away from the table, my heels clicking against the floor, every step echoing like a warning. My hands were trembling, but my resolve was steel. Because hidden inside my purse, next to those divorce papers, was the gift I had planned for Daniel. Something that would shatter not just the night, but the lies his mother had built her power on. As I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, my mind raced back through the years. The first time I met Mrs. Carter, when she looked me up and down like I was dirt under her shoe. The way she whispered to Daniel at family gatherings, always just loud enough for me to hear. The times she accidentally forgot to invite me to holiday dinners. Every slight, every insult, every dagger hidden behind a polite smile, it all led to this night. And yet, despite everything, I stayed. I stayed because I believed in love. I stayed because I thought Daniel would eventually find his backbone, that he'd stop living in his mother's shadow. But maybe I was the fool all along. When I reached the bedroom, I closed the door and leaned against it, my body trembling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But most of all, I wanted to stop hurting. That's when I pulled out the small, wrapped box from my purse and set it on the bed. The gift I had for Daniel wasn't jewelry, or a watch, or some sentimental photo album. No, it was truth. A truth so powerful it would tear through every lie his mother had told, every chain she had wrapped around him. Because while she thought I was just some poor girl from Indiana who took her son, she had no idea what I had built behind the scenes. She had no idea about the deal I had closed last month, the company I had quietly been growing for years, the power I now held in my own hands. This gift wasn't just about proving my worth. It was about showing them both that I was no longer the woman they could silence, dismiss, or control. Downstairs, I could still hear their voices faintly, hers sharp and commanding, his soft and obedient. But up here, in the quiet of our bedroom, I made a vow to myself. This anniversary would not be remembered as the night I was handed divorce papers. No. It would be remembered as the night I rose from the ashes they tried to bury me in. And when I gave Daniel my gift, everything, his loyalty, his future, his very identity, would be put to the test. The war had just begun. The wine kept spreading across the tablecloth like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. The stain grew darker, wider, swallowing everything in its path. And somehow, I couldn't look away from it. Because that's what this marriage felt like, something pure and white, now drowning under a mess no one could clean. "Evelyn, sit down," Daniel finally muttered, his voice low, like a guilty child whispering in church. His hands were clenched tight, knuckles pale, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. He never could, not when his mother was in the room. I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes out broken and bitter. Sit down? After what just happened? After she just tried to hand me divorce papers like a gift bag at a party? His mother leaned back in her chair, smug as a queen watching her subjects bicker. I didn't try, dear. I did. And if you had any sense, you'd thank me for it. Do you really think clinging to a loveless marriage makes you strong? No, Evelyn, it makes you pathetic. Her words hit me like bullets, but I refused to let her see me bleed. I stepped closer, my voice sharp, cutting through the tension. Loveless? You don't know the first thing about what love looks like. Maybe that's why you can't stand me, because I don't bow to you the way Daniel always has. Her eyes flashed, and for a second I saw it, the fury of a woman who had controlled everything and everyone around her for decades, except me. Watch your mouth, she hissed. You've taken enough from this family. Enough. That word echoed in my head. Had I really taken anything? I thought back to the years I'd worked 2 jobs just to help Daniel through business school, the nights I came home exhausted but still cooked dinner, the weekends I skipped outings with friends so we could save for a down payment on our first house. What exactly had I taken? I turned to Daniel, my voice shaking but strong enough to cut through the silence. Tell me, Daniel. What have I taken from you? Go on, say it. Look me in the eye and tell me I ruined your life. He finally looked up, but his eyes weren't filled with love or even anger. They were filled with fear. Fear of me, fear of her, fear of the truth. Evelyn, please, don't do this now. That was it. That was all he had to give. And in that moment, I knew I was fighting a battle not just against his mother, but against him too. Because a man who can't stand up for his wife isn't a husband. He's a puppet. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. My chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. Then, without another word, I picked up the envelope, folded it neatly, and slipped it into my purse. Fine. If this is what you want, then let's see how it plays out. But don't forget, I came prepared tonight too. I brought a gift, remember? Daniel blinked, confused. His mother snorted. A gift? Please. Nothing you could possibly give would change the fact that you don't belong here. I smiled then, a slow, deliberate smile that made her shift uneasily for the first time all evening. Oh, you'll see. And when you do, you'll realize you underestimated me. I turned and walked away from the table, my heels striking the wood with defiance. My chest was burning, but I refused to crumble, not in front of her, not in front of him. When I reached the bedroom, I shut the door behind me and finally let my body shake. My legs gave out, and I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the sheets just to keep steady. All the strength I showed downstairs drained out of me in seconds. How had it come to this? How had the boy I once fell in love with, the one who swore he'd protect me from the world, become a man too scared to protect me from his own mother? I thought about the beginning. About Daniel chasing me through campus, begging me to give him a chance. About the letters he used to write, full of promises about forever. About how he swore we'd build a life together, just us, without anyone else dictating what we could or couldn't be. And then I thought about how quickly his mother had inserted herself into our marriage. The phone calls at midnight, telling him what jobs to apply for. The advice that always sounded more like commands. The way she introduced herself at our wedding as the real woman of the Carter family. Maybe I should have seen it then. Maybe I should have known that if a man still lets his mother call the shots at 32 years old, he'll never grow into the husband you need him to be. But love makes you blind. And I had been blind for too long. A soft knock came at the bedroom door. My heart skipped, but it wasn't Daniel's voice that followed, it was hers. Don't waste your time packing, dear. My lawyer will be in touch tomorrow. The sooner you're out of this house, the better. Her heels clicked away down the hallway, each step heavy with triumph. I stared at the box on the bed, the gift I had planned for Daniel, and something inside me shifted. The fear, the heartbreak, the humiliation, it all hardened into resolve. I whispered into the empty room, my voice hoarse but steady. No. I'm not leaving. Not yet. Because she thought she had one. She thought she could erase me with a set of papers. But she had no idea what was coming. This wasn't the end. This was just the start of a war she never imagined. I don't know how long I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at that little box wrapped in silver paper. Minutes felt like hours, hours like days. All I knew was that downstairs, laughter had replaced the tension, the cold, brittle laugh of my mother-in-law, filling my home like smoke you couldn't escape. Finally, the door creaked open, and Daniel slipped inside. He didn't knock. He never knocked anymore. He just appeared, like a ghost haunting the spaces between us. Evelyn, he said softly, shutting the door behind him. Why do you always have to make things so difficult? I whipped my head toward him, disbelief flooding my chest. Me? Daniel, your mother barged into our anniversary dinner and handed me divorce papers like they were a bouquet of roses. And you think I'm the one making things difficult? He ran a hand through his hair, his voice tight. You don't understand how she is. If you'd just tried harder with her, maybe things wouldn't be like this. My jaw dropped. Tried harder? Do you have any idea how many times I've bitten my tongue to keep the peace? How many holidays I've smiled through while she insulted me in front of your cousins, your aunts, your business partners? Tried harder? Daniel, I have bent over backward until my spine nearly snapped. He winced, his shoulders curling in, like a boy caught doing something wrong. But instead of fighting for me, he whispered the same excuse I'd heard 100 times before. She just wants what's best for me. The words were a knife. No. She wants what's best for her. And you're too weak to see it. His face flushed, anger flickering across it for the first time. Don't talk about her like that. She's my mother. I stood, my body trembling, but my voice steady. And I'm your wife. Or does that mean nothing to you anymore? For a long moment, he said nothing. He just stood there, eyes fixed on the carpet, silence stretching between us until it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. Finally, he muttered, "You knew marrying me meant marrying my family." The words landed heavier than the divorce papers ever could. Because in that moment, I realized he never saw me as his partner. He saw me as an accessory to his family's legacy. I shook my head slowly, my throat burning. No, Daniel. I married you. I believed in you. But maybe you were never yours to give. Maybe you've always belonged to her. I brushed past him, my shoulder colliding with his as I headed for the balcony. The night air was sharp against my skin, carrying with it the faint hum of traffic below, the kind of ordinary sound that mocked how extraordinary my pain felt. I gripped the railing, staring out into the darkness, and memories crashed over me, our wedding day, when he promised to put me first. The night we signed the papers for this house, his eyes shining with pride. The mornings we used to make coffee together before work, his laughter filling the kitchen. Where had that man gone? Or had he ever existed at all? Behind me, I heard him sigh. Evelyn, maybe it would be better if you did sign them. You deserve someone who, he cut himself off, but I knew what he was about to say. I turned, my heart cracking. Finish it. Say it, Daniel. You think I deserve someone who isn't you? His lips parted, but no sound came out. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. I stepped closer, my voice low, trembling with fury. Coward. You'd rather let your mother destroy us than fight for me. You'd rather hide behind her than stand beside me. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a flicker of a second I thought he might fight back. But instead, he just dropped his gaze again. And that was worse than any shout, worse than any insult. Because at least anger meant there was something left. Silence meant he'd already given up. I pushed past him, heading back inside, my pulse racing. If he wouldn't fight for me, I'd fight for myself. Downstairs, I could hear her voice drifting up the stairs, mocking and triumphant. She was talking to someone on the phone, her laughter sharp as glass. Yes, it's handled. Tomorrow the papers will be signed. My Daniel will finally be free. Free. That word clawed at my chest. Free from me, as if I were the chains dragging him down. I went back into the bedroom and sat on the bed, staring at the silver box again. My hands hovered over it, aching to tear it open, to march downstairs and slam the truth in their faces. But I didn't. Not yet. Timing mattered. Power was about striking when they least expected it, when they were so sure of their victory they'd forgotten you were still in the game. So I tucked the box back into my purse, zipped it shut, and whispered into the quiet, "Not tonight. Tomorrow." Because tomorrow, when the lawyer came, when the papers were placed before me, when his mother smirked like she had already won, that's when I would give Daniel my gift. And when I did, nothing in their world would ever be the same again. Morning light spilled through the curtains, but it didn't bring peace. It brought war. I sat at the dining table, staring at the untouched breakfast in front of me. The coffee had gone cold. My stomach twisted, too knotted to even think about food. Across from me, Daniel sat rigid, flipping through the divorce papers his mother had left behind, his jaw tight, his silence deafening. And then, like she owned the world, Mrs. Carter swept into the kitchen. She was dressed in one of her pressed navy suits, pearls glinting at her throat, a smug little smirk painted across her face. She didn't even look at me, she looked at her son. Always her son. Well, she asked, tapping the papers with one manicured nail. Have you signed them yet? Daniel's eyes flickered toward me, then back down. Not yet. Not yet, she scoffed. Darling, this woman doesn't belong in your life. Don't drag this out. The faster you're free, the faster you can finally step into the future you were meant for. That was it. That was my breaking point. My pulse roared in my ears as I stood, the chair screeching against the tile. My voice came out sharper than glass. You want me gone so badly? Fine. But before I go, you should both see the gift I brought last night. The gift I was saving for our anniversary. Mrs. Carter turned, her smirk twitching. A gift? She laughed. What could you possibly give that matters? I reached into my purse, pulled out the silver-wrapped box, and placed it on the table between us. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the electricity of finally taking my power back. Daniel frowned. Evelyn, what is this? Open it, I said. He hesitated, glancing at his mother, as if waiting for her approval. She gave a little nod, lips curling, and he tore the paper away. Inside was a sleek black folder, thick with documents. He looked confused, flipping through the first few pages. His brow furrowed. What is this? He asked again, slower this time. I leaned forward, my voice calm, deliberate. That, Daniel, is proof that for the last 3 years, I've been building something. A company. A company I started with the money I saved while working those double shifts you never noticed, the nights you thought I was just at the library. While you and your mother looked down on me, I was negotiating, networking, growing. And as of last month, my company closed a partnership deal with one of the largest tech firms in Chicago. His hands trembled as he flipped deeper into the folder. The numbers were undeniable. Contracts. Bank statements. Ownership percentages. Mrs. Carter's smirk faltered. This is a joke. I turned on her, fire in my voice. No. The joke is that you thought I was powerless. That you thought I was just some small-town girl who married above her station. But the truth is, I am now majority shareholder of the firm your son has been trying to buy into for 2 years. The same firm you begged investors to open doors to for him. Daniel's head snapped up, his face pale. What? I smiled, slow and steady. That's right. While you've been bowing to your mother's every word, I've been building an empire. And last night, on our anniversary, I was going to tell you that everything I built for us. That we'd finally have the freedom to live without her strings attached. But instead, I got divorce papers. Silence fell like a hammer. Daniel's lips parted, but no sound came out. His mother was the first to recover, her voice sharp, desperate. You expect me to believe this? That you could pull this off? I met her gaze, unflinching. Believe what you want. But the truth is right in front of you. And here's the best part, as majority shareholder, I now control the future of the Carter family's biggest business rival. Which means, Mrs. Carter, I hold more power than you ever dreamed. Her face drained of color. For the first time, she was speechless. Daniel looked between us, his eyes wide, his voice trembling. Evelyn, why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked, I said, my throat tight. You never cared to see me as anything but a burden. You let her convince you I was small. But I was never small, Daniel. You just refused to look. The weight of those words hit him harder than any slap. He dropped the folder onto the table, burying his face in his hands. Mrs. Carter finally found her voice, but it cracked when she spoke. You think this changes anything? Money doesn't buy respect. You'll still never be one of us. I leaned in close, my voice low, steady, and deadly. I don't want to be one of you. I don't need your acceptance. I never did. Because real power doesn't come from your last name, or the circles you dine in. It comes from surviving every time people like you try to break me. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes darted toward her son, but he looked lost, crumbling, the papers still spread out in front of him like shards of truth. He couldn't piece back together. And in that moment, I realized I had already won. Not because I had more money. Not because I held the leverage. But because I had finally shown them who I really was. The outsider. The underdog. The woman they tried to erase. The woman who refused to disappear. For the first time in years, my mother-in-law was silent. That smug confidence she wore like perfume had cracked, her face drained of color, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. But if there's one thing I've learned about powerful people, it's that silence never lasts. She straightened, adjusting her pearls, her voice icy and controlled. So you think this little stunt makes you powerful? You think buying into one company gives you a place at our table? Please, Evelyn. You've only made yourself a target. Daniel lifted his head, his voice hoarse. Mom. She cut him off, her eyes never leaving me. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've aligned yourself with vultures. People who will use you, chew you up, and spit you out the second they're finished. And when that happens, you'll come crawling back here, begging for scraps. I laughed, soft, bitter, and sharp. Funny. That's exactly what you thought 3 years ago when I started this company. And yet here I am, not crawling, but standing taller than you ever wanted me to. Her lips thinned, but she leaned closer, lowering her voice into something venomous. You think you've won because you shocked me? No, Evelyn. I built this family's empire on resilience. I know how to survive women like you. Pretty faces with temporary victories. You'll burn out. And when you do, Daniel will still be here, by my side, not yours. Her words were meant to cut, but they revealed something far more dangerous, her fear. She was losing control of her son. And she would rather scorch the earth than let me have him. Daniel sat frozen, caught between us, his eyes darting back and forth like a boy watching his parents fight. His silence screamed louder than words, but for once, I didn't need him. I wasn't waiting for him to choose me anymore. I leaned back, folding my arms. You're right about one thing, Mrs. Carter. I did shock you. And it won't be the last time. Because unlike you, I don't need to control Daniel to feel powerful. I built something on my own. Something that doesn't crumble when you walk into the room. For the first time, she faltered. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. But then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. She smiled that cold smile again. You really believe you can outplay me? Fine. Let's play. The following days were a war I never signed up for but couldn't escape. Phone calls from unknown numbers, meetings mysteriously cancelled, suppliers suddenly backing out. Every move I made in business was met with resistance. And I knew exactly who was behind it. She was trying to choke me out. To remind me that her reach was longer, her name heavier, her influence deeper than I could imagine. But what she didn't understand was that I'd been surviving storms long before she knew my name. One evening, I came home to find Daniel waiting in the living room, his face pale, his hands trembling. He held up a letter. Mom says your company is under investigation. That you forged documents to get that partnership deal. My stomach turned, but my anger burned hotter. Of course she did. She can't destroy me with the truth, so she's making up lies. His eyes searched mine, uncertain, fragile. Is it true? The question cut deeper than the accusation itself. After everything I've shown you. After everything I've sacrificed, you think I'd risk it all by cheating? He swallowed hard, lowering the letter. I don't know what to believe anymore. That broke me in ways I didn't want to admit. Because no matter how strong I stood against her, no matter how sharp my words, there was still a part of me that wanted him to believe me without hesitation. But if he couldn't see me now, if he couldn't stand beside me when the truth was clear, then maybe he never would. Mrs. Carter's attacks escalated. She showed up at my office one morning, strutting through the lobby like she owned the place. My employees froze, whispering, staring. She leaned across my desk, her perfume suffocating, her smile venomous. "You can fight me all you want, dear, but let me remind you, power isn't about what you own. It's about who you own. And trust me, I own more people than you can count." I stood slowly, refusing to let her tower over me. And yet, here you are. In my office. On my turf. Trying to scare me because you know you can't beat me head on. For the first time, I saw it. The crack. The desperation beneath her polished exterior. She was unraveling. She leaned closer, whispering one last dagger. "If you won't sign those papers, Evelyn, I'll destroy everything you've built until you wish you had." I met her eyes, calm and steady. "Then do it. Burn the whole world if you have to. Because no matter what you destroy, you'll never destroy me. And one day, Daniel will see you for what you really are." She flinched, not much, but enough. And then she turned on her heel and stormed out, her heels clattering like war drums. That night, Daniel didn't come home. His phone went straight to voicemail. I sat by the window, watching the city lights blur through my tears, wondering if he was with her, if he was letting her pour poison in his ear. But beneath the pain, beneath the loneliness, something inside me had shifted. I was no longer the woman begging for a seat at their table. I was the woman, building my own. And if Daniel chose to sit at hers instead, then maybe he wasn't the man I thought I married. And maybe that was okay. Because no matter how much she tried to strip it away, I had found something stronger than her influence, stronger than his silence. I had found myself. The gala hall shimmered with chandeliers and polished marble, the kind of event Mrs. Carter lived for. Her empire had always been built on appearances, grand gestures, flawless reputations, whispered praises of power. Tonight was no different. She had organized this charity gala herself, positioning Daniel as the face of their family's legacy. And yet, when I entered, heads turned. Not toward her. Not toward him. But toward me. I wore no pearls, no diamonds, no symbols of her world. Just a black gown, simple and sharp, with confidence as my only jewel. My company's logo lit up the sponsorship banners. My name was printed beside hers. I had earned my place here, not by marrying into her empire, but by building my own. She spotted me across the room, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second. But then she plastered it back on, sweeping forward like a queen descending her throne. "Well, well," she purred, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Look who decided to crash my event." I smiled back, calm and steady. I didn't crash. I was invited. Turns out people want me here. A few whispers rippled through the crowd. She hated that. Attention was her drug, and I had stolen a dose. Daniel appeared at her side, his tie slightly crooked, his face pale. He looked torn, exhausted, like a man being pulled in two directions until something inside him might snap. His eyes met mine briefly, but he said nothing. Mrs. Carter looped her arm through his, squeezing possessively. "Enjoy your evening, dear. Don't forget, you're a guest here. Not family." Her words were a blade, meant to slice deep. But this time, I didn't bleed. Later in the evening, the speeches began. One by one, donors and dignitaries took the stage, praising Mrs. Carter, applauding her vision, her leadership. She beamed like royalty, her hand never leaving Daniel's arm. Then, it was Daniel's turn. He stepped up to the podium, adjusting the microphone. His voice was steady, but I saw the tremor in his hands. Tonight, I stand not just as my mother's son, but as someone who has witnessed the cost of ambition and the courage of truth. The room stilled. Mrs. Carter's smile froze. He glanced at her, then at me. For too long, I let myself be blind. Blind to manipulation. Blind to cruelty disguised as love. And in that blindness, I failed the woman who gave me more than any empire ever could. My breath caught. He turned fully toward me. Evelyn, I failed you. I let silence speak louder than loyalty. I let fear keep me from defending you when you needed me most. But tonight, I refuse to be silent any longer. The crowd murmured, shifting uncomfortably. Mrs. Carter's nails dug into the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Daniel's voice grew stronger. This empire doesn't belong to cruelty. It belongs to integrity. And if I have to choose tonight, I choose my wife. I choose Evelyn. Gasps filled the hall. Cameras flashed. Mrs. Carter stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the marble. Daniel, sit down. But he didn't. He turned to her, his voice ringing with a strength I had never heard before. No, Mom. You've controlled me my whole life. But not anymore. This ends tonight. Her face twisted, rage pouring through her polished mask. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? Throwing away your legacy for her? He looked at her with eyes no longer afraid. A legacy built on fear isn't worth inheriting. Silence hung heavy in the air. Then, as if the universe itself had decided to add punctuation, one of the board members rose. With all due respect, Mrs. Carter, he said carefully, Daniel is right. The future doesn't belong to intimidation. It belongs to innovation. And Evelyn's company, her leadership, proves that. Others began to nod. Another voice chimed in. Then another. The tide was turning, right before our eyes. Mrs. Carter staggered back, her power crumbling in the one place she thought she was untouchable, public opinion. For a woman who lived on appearances, this was death by 1,000 cuts. Her lips trembled, but no words came. For the first time, she had nothing to say. And in that silence, her throne shattered. After the event, Daniel found me on the terrace. The night air was cool, the city lights stretching endlessly. He looked at me, his eyes raw, his voice breaking. Evelyn, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I stood by too long. But I meant what I said, I choose you. If you'll still have me. Tears blurred my vision. Part of me wanted to fall into his arms, to let love heal the scars. But another part, the stronger part, knew this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about respect. Trust. I placed my hand gently on his chest. Daniel, I love you. But love without courage is just a chain. Tonight, you broke yours. Now show me that it lasts tomorrow. And the day after. And every day after that. He nodded, his voice trembling. I will. I promise. As I stood there, watching him, watching the empire his mother once ruled crumble, I realized something profound. My victory wasn't in Daniel choosing me. It wasn't in silencing her. It was in discovering that I didn't need anyone's approval to stand tall. I had built something that could not be taken, no matter how many papers she served or lies she spread. I had built myself. And that was a gift no one, not even her, could ever shatter. Sometimes the greatest battle isn't against those who try to destroy us. It's against the voice inside that tells us we're not strong enough to fight back. But the moment you stand, unshaken and unafraid, the world has no choice but to see you differently.